The clock in the nurse's station touched midnight, and Nurse Patty Greer's break ended. Patty had to take Stuart Redmond's blood, and it irked her. She thought of him as an old poop. And Patty, who had broken a leg when she was 7 and had never spent a day in a bed since, had little patience for old poops. "Good luck with Grumpy, Patty." "Thanks, Janine." On her way to the White Room, where she would be sprayed and then helped into her hazard suit, Patty's nose began to tickle. She sneezed, lightly, into her hanky 3 times, and thought nothing of it. Achoo! 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 Before reaching the White Room, Patty infected an orderly, a doctor just coming off his shift, and another nurse on her midnight rounds. A new day and a new chapter for Captain Trips had begun. Lloyd Henreid and Andrew Polk Freeman had killed 6 people in as many days. The radio was referring to them as the interstate fugitives. Lloyd especially liked the sound of that. Gangbusters, Lloyd thought, then riffed. "Take that, you dirty rat. Have a lead sandwich, you lousy kappa." Their stolen car was full of dope and shooting irons. 238s, 345s, the 357 mag that Polk called his pokerizer, 6 shotguns, and Lloyd's favorite, a Schmeisser submachine gun. The idea was that they should pull a quick store, get some money, get some maps, switch cars, and head north by the secondary roads. Get out of Arizona. "You ready?" "I guess so." They were stoned, paranoid, and running on fumes. Inside, the shop smelled of stale licorice, sun, tobacco, and age. Present were the shop's proprietor, a cowboy buying smokes and Slim Jims, and a tired-looking woman deciding which spaghetti sauce her husband might like best. "Just hold still and nobody'll get hurt." "Holy gee, Polk. You didn't have to." "I pokerized her, old buddy. Woo-woo!" "Polk? Shot me, Lloyd. He shot me. Look out!" Lloyd swung around and fired at the cowboy more than reflex than in self-defense. He felt more than heard the cowboy's bullet as it zipped past him, close enough to part his hair. As for the cowboy, a man named Bill Markson. "Bastard shot me. Stupid bastard blew my face off." It's okay, Polk. I got him." "Screw this." Screw the money, Lloyd thought. There's money everywhere. The Arizona State Patrol, stopping by for hot dogs and slushies. Hold it right there. What's going on here?" 3 people dead. Hell of a mess. Guy that did it went out back. I'm getting out of here." "He's lying. He shot Bill Markson. The other one shot Mrs. Storm. I shot the other one. Put your hands up, right now." Less than an hour later, Lloyd Henreid would be in the Apache County pen, cursing the day he'd crossed paths with Polk, a little over a year ago, on a minimum security work farm in Nebraska. Franny Goldsmith had been listening to the measured ticks and talks of the grandfather clock in their mother's parlor all of her life. For Franny, the clock summed up the room, oppressive and hateful. Everything she wished she could forget from her childhood. "How could you do it? Go out and rut with that boy like a bitch in heat. Mother, Carla, are you expecting to stay in this house? Are you expecting us to feed you and board you? Well, no, I will not have it. I don't. I'm not staying here. I'm staying with either Bobby in Dorchester or Debbie in Somersworth, I suppose. Not that it's any business of yours." "No business of mine. You ungrateful little... There's not a bit of shame in you. My God, what this is going to do to your father and me. It will break your father's heart." "It don't feel so broken." "Peter, you leave this to me. She told you first, and you kept it from me. Now the 2 of us are going to thrash this out, mother and daughter. This is not your province." "It is." "Daddy, don't you speak to him. Carla, I know you sweet-talked him into taking your side, but he is not the one you're dealing with today, miss." "Stop it, Carla. Stop and listen to me." "Peter, you stopped caring about Franny when Fred died. That's when you decided that caring hurt too much. You doted on your dead family and forgot the part of it still living." "Don't you talk about Fred. Don't you talk to me about my son." "He was my son, too. But he's dead, Carla. Franny and her baby are alive. And if you drive her off, you'll have nothing but this room and a husband who'll hate you for what you did." "Daddy, Mother, I want to go upstairs and lie down. I think I'd better lie down." Carla Goldsmith left the room. Then, listing like a drunken woman, she wouldn't let her husband or daughter help her, though both offered. Father and daughter stood in the parlor for a long time, in shock, listening to Carla's sobs coming from somewhere above them, as the grandfather clock ticked calmly on. Nick Andros, having his first home-cooked meal in a long time. "I hope you're enjoying your dinner, Nick. My coleslaw's never been up to what Mother used to make." "Well, that's what he says, anyway." "Oh, hell, Janie." "Your cold sounds worse. And look at your plate. You haven't eaten enough to keep a fly alive." "I can afford to miss a meal now and then." "And you're flushed, too. That means you're carrying a fever. And that means you're not going out again tonight. And that's final, John Baker." "My dear, I have prisoners. They need to be fed and watered. Nick can do it. You're going to bed. And don't you start with your insomnia talk." "I can't." "I can't send Nick. He's a deaf mute. Besides, he ain't a deputy." "Well, then, you'll just have to deputize him. He ain't a resident, Janie. I won't tell if you won't." And that, friends, was how Nick Andros went from show-yo prisoner to show-yo deputy in less than 24 hours. "You've got the cot in the corner, Nick. It's hard, but it's clean. You be careful, boy. Remember, you can't call for help if there's trouble." There are 4 jail cells in Sheriff Baker's station. Vincent Hogan was in one, Bill Warner was in one, and Mike Childress was in one. The 4th and last cell was empty because Ray Booth, brother to Jane Baker and ringleader of the 3 hoods who beat Nick black and blue, had skipped town. For the most part, Nick sat turned away from the cell so he wouldn't be able to lip-read his prisoners' taunts and jeers. But every now and then, he caught a tidbit. "Chicken bastard, ain't he?" So Nick had an appropriate response ready. At the request of Jane Baker, Nick wrote out his life story. It was mostly the story of how he'd learned to read and write. He had grown up in an orphanage, angry and isolated, unreachable. Then a teacher, Rudy Sparkman, decided he was worth something. Gave Nick a blank sheet of paper, pointed at it, pointed at Nick, then pointed at the sheet again. Took Nick a while to figure it out, but he did, finally. Rudy was saying to him, "You are this blank page. You are this blank page." 6 years of struggle later, he could read, write, and read lips. That night, Nick dreamed. He was walking along a country road through endless fields of green corn, looking for something, but he didn't know what. And he was terribly afraid of something that seemed to be behind him, following him. "Day off, Ma. I have a cold that wants to break me. I hate to call in sick on Friday. So many people do. But I'm running a fever and I have swollen glands." And yet there she was, scrambling him some eggs with the same whisk she'd been using since she was a first grader at PS 162. "Did you call the doctor?" "No, sir. I'll stay home and take aspirin, and by tomorrow this time I'll be on a downhill side of it." Since there was no arguing with her, Larry tried to help instead. "Honestly, you're going to give yourself a hernia so I can watch Let's Make a Deal." After getting her juice and NyQuil at the bodega, they realized there was little to do except get on each other's nerves. Larry told Alice he might go out and see some more of the city. "That's a good idea. I'm going to take a nap, I think." "You're a good boy, Larry." "Rest, Ma. I love you." He took the subway to Times Square, getting more excited with each stop. He expected the city to look different since the last time he'd seen it, more magical somehow. But when he came up the stairs from the R train, it all looked the same. Oh, there were fewer massage parlors and X-rated movies, but it was very much the same city he had left behind. And that made Larry sad. He had realized, in a matter of seconds, that he had forgotten what it was like to be a part of New York, and that he had no particular urge to relearn. Passing in front of a discount record store, he heard his own voice coming from battered speakers above the door. That's me, Larry thought. Suddenly he wanted to be anywhere but under New York's gray washtub sky, smelling New York's exhaust, worried someone was going to lift his wallet. He wanted desperately to be back home on the West Coast. What is it now, Len? The press, General. A doctor in Sap Springs, Texas about 400 miles from Arnett, has apparently made some good guesses about blue. And now, a pair of reporters from Houston have linked what's happening in Sap Springs to what's already happened in Arnett, Verona, Commerce City, Pauliston, and every other damn town we've quarantined. So our little situation is about to see print. Looks like. What do you want to do here, Bill? A regrettable incident has occurred, Len, involving a branch of the United States military. At a certain point, you stop questioning the roots of the incident and you start asking yourself, how can that branch best be pruned? The service is mother and father to us, Len. And if you find your mother raped and your father beaten and robbed, before you call the police or start an investigation, you cover their nakedness. Because you love them. Extreme covert countermeasures, Lan. Troy. Bill. I repeat, Lan. Troy. Holy God, what the hell is this? I don't know. Listen, maybe we better wait here if you want. Alright, someone want to tell me what the damn problem is? Holy... The reporter had spent 3 years in the army. Even though they weren't wearing uniforms, he recognized the men as soldiers. As the slugs blew out his chest and groin, he wondered if his executioners were somehow connected to the mysterious flu he was investigating. Run! Only chance! Down the shoulder! The photographer's last conscious thoughts. I'm gonna make it. I can run forever. Then he heard a blast, and the brains exited the front of his head. Needless to say, there were no published reports of disease or any other trouble in Sipe Springs, Texas that day. Troy indeed. Stu Redman was frightened. Before, back in Atlanta, it felt like he'd been in a hospital. Now, after a 3-ring circus move to the Green Mountains of Vermont, he felt like he was in a jail cell. Something must have happened. Someone must have slipped. No one confirmed this, but Stu had a sense that most everyone back in Atlanta must be getting a chance to research the superflu firsthand. They were still doing tests on him here, but they seemed desultory. The schedule was slipshod. Mr. Redman. Even worse was the guns. No one came into his room unless accompanied by a soldier with a gun. The guns meant, in a way, that he had become expendable. No more games like he had pulled on Dietz. The simple fact was, Stu Redman was scared for his life. Being under detention was bad. Being under detention and being expendable? That was very bad. Thank you, Mr. Redman. And not for the first time, Stu wondered if it was possible to escape from this place.